There is a man in Arizona who has been dead for 59 years. His name was James Bedford. And on the 12th of January 1967, he became the first human being in history to be frozen instead of buried. He is still there, suspended head down in a steel tank of liquid nitrogen, colder than any winter this planet has ever known. Silent, unchanged, waiting. Because somewhere in a future that has not happened yet, James Bedford has an appointment. And one day, that appointment could belong to you. So let's do it. Let's freeze you. Let's fast forward 100 years into the dark and find out what, if anything, is left. Here's the first thing they don't tell you. The freezing is not the dangerous part. The dangerous part is the gap. Those first few minutes after your heart stops, when the machines fall silent and there is no blood, no oxygen, no signal, nothing moving inside you at all. Because your brain does not wait politely to be preserved, starved of oxygen, it begins to take itself apart in as little as 4 minutes. Which is why, the instant you are pronounced legally dead, a team is already leaning over your body. Ice packs. A pump forcing cold fluid through your veins. Chest compressions on a heart they have no intention of restarting. They are not trying to save your life. Your life is already gone. They are trying to save the pattern, the wiring, the arrangement of you. And to save it, first they have to get rid of the water. Because this is the paradox sitting at the center of everything. They do not actually want to freeze you. Ice is the enemy. When water freezes, it doesn't just harden, it grows. It forms crystals, sharp and expanding. And inside the microscopic space of your cells, those crystals turn into blades. They puncture, they tear. They shred the delicate structures that hold your memories, your habits, yourself in place. So before the cold comes, the water in your body is flushed out and replaced with a cocktail of cryoprotectants. Medical antifreeze. And as the temperature plunges past minus 130 degrees, something extraordinary happens. Your tissue does not freeze. It vitrifies. It turns to glass. No crystals. No blades. Every cell locked in place at minus 196 degrees. A body turned into a cathedral of glass and memory. But that leaves the one question that actually matters. The question this entire 100-year gamble depends on. Is anything still in there? In 2015, two researchers, Natasha Vita-Moore and Daniel Baranco, set out to test exactly that. They chose a tiny worm, C. elegans, a creature with a nervous system of exactly 302 neurons, one of the most completely mapped brains in all of science. First, they taught it something. They trained the worm to react to a particular smell, laying down a simple memory in that tiny web of nerves. Then they vitrified it, turned the whole animal to glass, and brought it back. And when the worm came out the other side, it still remembered. The lesson had survived. The learning had survived. A memory, physically written into a living nervous system, had passed all the way through glass and emerged intact. Sit with that for a second. A memory, frozen solid, and still there when the lights came back on. If a worm can carry what it learned through vitrification and out again, then perhaps the wiring that makes you you is not automatically erased by the cold. Perhaps. But a worm is one thing. A warm-blooded mammal is another entirely. So back in 2009, the cryobiologist Gregory Fahey took a rabbit's kidney and vitrified it, cooled an entire living organ down into glass. Then he rewarmed it and transplanted it back into a rabbit. And the rabbit lived on that one kidney. The organ filtered its blood. It produced urine. A piece of tissue that had been solid glass was up and working again as if nothing had happened. Then it got stranger. In 2016, a team led by a young researcher named Robert McIntyre preserved an entire mammalian brain, and then sliced it open under an electron microscope to look inside. And every connection between every neuron was still there. The connectum, the complete wiring diagram of a mind, preserved down to the finest thread, readable. They won a scientific prize for it, not for waking a brain up, for proving the map of one can survive. The structure holds. But keeping a structure and switching it back on are two very, very different problems. And here is the detail that should unsettle you most. While billion-dollar laboratories fight to crack this, a small brown frog in your garden has already beaten them to it. The wood frog. Every single winter, it freezes. Not as a figure of speech. Solid. Up to 2/3 of all the water in its body turns to ice. Its heart stops beating. Its brain goes dark. Its blood stops flowing. By every clinical definition we have, the frog is dead. And then spring arrives. The frog thaws from the inside out. The heart shudders and restarts, and it simply hops away. Kenneth Story at Carleton University has spent decades watching wood frogs do the impossible. Before the freeze, the frog floods its own body with sugar, its private cryoprotectant, and then it just waits out the ice and comes back to life on the far side of winter. You are trying to do with machines and chemistry what this frog does every year on pure instinct. Nature solved this a long time ago. The trouble is, you are not a frog. So let's say it all goes right. Let's say they get you into the glass, clean, and whole. Now the clock starts, and here is the strangest fact in this entire story. For the next 100 years, nothing happens to you. At minus 196 degrees, chemistry itself grinds to a halt. Decay stops, bacteria stop. Time for your body simply stops. Outside your tank, the world tears through a century. Empires rise and fall, cities are rebuilt. Everyone you have ever loved grows old and dies, and slowly fades out of living memory. And you do not age a single second. You are, without competition, the stillest object on the entire planet. Until perhaps someone, someday, decides it is time to bring you back. And that is the hardest step of them all, because warming you up is far more dangerous than cooling you down. Warm you too fast, and the glass fractures. Warm you unevenly, and you crack apart like a windshield in the frost. In 2017, John Bischoff at the University of Minnesota found the first real hint of a solution. He laced vitrified tissue with magnetic nanoparticles, then heated it from the inside out evenly, gently, with no cracks at all. On small samples of tissue, it worked. On an entire frozen human being, it has never once been attempted. So let's be honest with each other, here at the end. No human being has ever been revived. Not one. Not James Bedford. Not any of the several hundred people currently waiting in tanks across the world. Every one of them made the exact same bet, that the damage done to them can, one distant day, be repaired by people who have not yet been born. And the bet is brutal. The cryoprotectants that rescue you from ice are themselves poisonous to living tissue. The minutes without oxygen before the cold takes hold leave scars we cannot yet read. And the technology to undo any of it, to reverse the toxicity, heal the damage, and switch a human mind back on does not exist. Not anywhere. Not yet. You would not be frozen in time. You would be frozen in a question. So, what really happens 100 years after your body is frozen? Honestly, most likely, nothing. You wait in the dark, in the deep cold, holding an appointment that the future never actually promised to keep. But maybe that misses the whole point, because you were never really frozen. Not the part that matters, not you. You were sealed, like a letter, written in a language they might no longer speak, addressed to people who do not exist yet, and dropped into the dark, betting everything on the hope that someone, 100 years from now, still bothers to open it. James Bedford is still waiting for his appointment. 59 years, and counting. He is not asking the future to be possible. He is asking it to be kind, and that, trusting strangers you will never meet to choose one day to wake you, might be the most fragile and the most stubbornly human thing a person can ever do. Human.